Okay, back on part 2 of the Silvertone radio repair. In part 1, we replaced the capacitors and the power cord, cleaned up the chassis, replaced a couple of bad tubes, and discovered that the output IF transformer is defective. And the symptoms are what you can hear in the speaker. Sounds like a thunderstorm. What happens is the internal mica capacitors inside of the IF transformers become leaky and thus causes voltage to leak from the primary winding over to the secondary winding. And when you check your voltage on the secondary winding, you find that it's a very high positive voltage usually. Well, it can be from a few volts to 10 or 20 volts. And looking at it on the oscilloscope, that's a visual representation of the garbage that's coming out of that second IF transformer. So what we'll need to do is remove this IF transformer, take it apart, disable the internal mica capacitors, reinstall the transformer, and then mount a couple of silver mica caps across the terminals on the transformer. Now, a lot of restorers stick to 100 picofarad caps for the AM IF transformers, such as what's in this set. However, there are some cases where they used other values of capacitors, and 100 picofarad it won't always work as best as some other value would. But we'll get to that in a minute. But first thing we need to do is unsolder the leads to this transformer and get it out of the chassis. Okay, we now have all the wires disconnected from the offending IF transformer, and of course you want to make sure that you take note of where each wire connects to when you're putting it all back together. And the way you remove the transformer is you have to remove this little brass clip here, and you can see the brass clip there. You know, you just use a small bladed screwdriver or whatever, or your fingernail, to pop the clip out of the way, and then the transformer should just lift off. And you'll also want to take note of which way the physical position the transformer is mounted so you can connect everything up properly. And now it's time to remove the outer housing from the transformer, and the way you do that is gently pry up these two little tabs here with a small blade screwdriver, and then the innards should just pull right out. And before you do that, you want to mark the innards to make sure that you put them back in exactly in the direction that they came out. And the way I've done that is just simply made a little ink pen marking there so I'll know which way they go. That way we can put everything back like it was installed originally. And here we are with the hold down tabs removed. Now let's see if we can slide this out. There we go. Now let me examine this and see how we're going to take care of this problem. Okay, here's a close-up view of the transformer. You can see the mica sheets that make up the help make up the internal capacitor. What we want to do is get rid of those. And this transformer is a little bit different than some of the ones I've done in the past, so I'm going to have to think this through here. Probably the best way to do this is to cut off each one of these contacts that fold down over, and that way they won't make contact with the mica sheet. And then if possible, I need to get those pieces of mica out of there. But I think first we'll eliminate those contacts that fold over, and then we'll go from there. I'm not promising I'm going to be able to fix this. I may totally ruin it, but if I can't get this working, it won't be because I didn't try. Okay, I've cut away the 4 contacts that make up the capacitor, and now we'll lift up the mica sheet and just go ahead and get it out of here. There's no need in it remaining. Obviously, I can't just lift the mica sheet completely up over the winding, so I'll just have to lift it up as much as possible and then chip it away. You want to be real careful when working on these because the wires are very fine that solder to these terminals, and you really don't want to break them if you can help it. Yes, I have broken them by accident in the past, and they're kind of a pain in the butt to resolder, so the best thing to do is just avoid breaking them if you can. And here's the remains of the old mica insulator. You can see all the black crud on it where it's been arcing across. And I've tested the windings on the transformer. They still have continuity, so that means I got lucky and didn't break any of the hair-thin wires. And now it's time to install the innards of the transformer back into the case, into the metal can, and put it back in the radio. And here's the transformer put back together. You can see I have my markings lined up, and this mounts towards the rear of the radio chassis. So we'll put this back in the set, solder it up, and install some outboard silver mica capacitors. Okay, here we are all back together. Had to replace one wire because I ended up breaking it, but it wasn't no big deal. Now we'll fire the radio up and see if the static goes away. And I really hope I can get away with using these 100 picofarad caps. I'd really rather not take all this out again, but I will if I have to. Okay, it's a lot better, but we're still getting some static burst, most likely due to this first IF transformer needing the same thing that was done to the second IF transformer. Let's check our voltage across the secondary winding of the second IF transformer. Yeah, that looks good, a negative 0.43 volts. As you may recall from the last video, the voltage was about 10 to 20 volts positive before we repaired the IF transformer. Now let's look at the secondary winding of the first IF transformer. As you can see, it's not as positive as the second IF transformer was, but we do have a positive voltage there, which indicates some leakage there. So unfortunately, this first IF transformer is going to need the same thing that the second IF transformer got. Just for the heck of it, let me connect the loop antenna and see if we can get any stations at all through this receiver.
Machine in your lifetime.
Okay, we're getting some reception now.
Must be rolling over in heaven to see an entire religion part of a people. Total and absolute madness.
We serve the most authentic and tasty Italian you'll find anywhere. Gus and Deb's just teaching help.
It's located on Highway 39 North at Eastgate Plaza, next door to
yeah, that speaker sounds like crap.
Black soap, fragrant oil, solo gear. You snapback hat, earrings.
Okay, so that concludes part 2 of this video. We'll address the first IF transformer in the next video, and then we'll have to deal with this speaker that sounds like crap. Okay, there you go. Thanks for watching, and more to come later.